Hey everyone, we have a really exciting interview today, but first I want to go over weekly actions that people can be doing, or what specifically I'm doing this week with the ongoing coup and with the Senate runoffs in Georgia and all of that. So really something that we haven't yet talked about is that there is a member, Emily Murphy. She's a member of the General Services Administration, or the GSA, and she just refuses to do something that she needs to do called ascertainment, which would grant the Biden transition team access to federal agencies so that they could prepare for the transition. And so far, she just hasn't done it. I cannot believe it's taking this long. Like, what is she doing? And she offers no legitimate explanation. She just doesn't want Biden to have access to those resources. She's like a Trump loyalist and is just stalling. So crucial information is not getting shared with the incoming administration, which includes sensitive security briefings, and he's had to create his own transition team without federal resources. It's a mess. So we have to make sure that all of our elected representatives have come out publicly to pressure the GSA and Emily Murphy specifically to authorize a Biden transition. If you live in Illinois, you can call and thank your senators because Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth have already done it. Or if you want to ask your senators, if you want to just cover all your bases, you want to say, hey, senators and elected representative, we need you to publicly pressure the GSA to authorize a Biden transition. If you want to send that, you can just text sign PUOCXJ to 50409. So that's PUOCXJ. Text PUOCXJ to 50409. That's ResistBot. If you live in Illinois, you can call and thank your senators, or just text 50409 and say, hey, thanks for coming out in favor. I called Tammy and said that yesterday. So that's one thing that you can do. Also, if you get your health insurance through the marketplace, you have to sign up by December 15th. So make sure you get those applications in. And I found out about a new thing, or a new resource. I've always felt kind of bad because those vote forward letters are only an option for people who have a printer at home. But if you don't have a printer at home, I highly recommend going to postcardstoswingstates.com and ordering 50 or 100 or however many postcards to Georgia voters. So I just ordered 100. So you go to their website, postcardstoswingstates.com, and then you can order, you say how many you want, you order that many, they ship to your house, and within a couple hours, you are emailed a list of those Georgia voters. So I picked 100. So I'm going to do that. And then, as always, you can always donate to progressive grassroots organizations in Georgia. That link is always in our link tree, which is in our Instagram bio. And also, it's always in the show notes. It's the link at the very bottom. So that always has all the resources that we talk about that are still relevant. It's always updated, so you can always check that out. And I guess that's all. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, Katie.
How are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm so good because we have our old coworker, the podcast's senior emergency preparedness expert correspondent, Steve, is with us today.
Welcome, Steve. Thank you for coming on to our podcast today.
Well, thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Katie. It's always a pleasure to talk to you too.
We couldn't agree more. We were bantering a little bit before we started recording about what's going on with COVID in the United States right now. We are recording this on November 15th, but it won't come out for a little bit more than a week. So There will probably be 250,000 COVID deaths in the United States by the time this podcast comes out. That math is just based on how many have died already, and over 1,000 Americans are dying a day now. So yeah, we will probably get there by the time you listen to this episode. And it's really scary. I mean, do you guys, Morgan, it's worse where you are. It's worse in Iowa, but it's getting really bad here. Like, what's going on with like hospitals there?
Yeah, it is scary. The hospitals here are either out of beds or out of staff. Like, if the hospital's got beds, then it doesn't matter because they don't have enough staff available to care for you. And if they don't have beds, then they're airlifting or life flighting you to a different hospital, sometimes in a different state, who, if their beds fill up or their hospitals become overwhelmed, they're going to tell us to stop bringing our people. I don't know. I just it's like getting to a point that I'm like, I mean, if we don't do something pretty soon, aside from just saying like, everybody, we're in this together, then we're going to have a situation where like the week after Christmas, there's going to be a corpse cart going around the different towns in Iowa, and they're just going to be like, bring out your dead, because there will be no room in the hospitals. And not just for COVID patients. It's not like just their COVID units are full. If you get into a car accident right now, or you're giving birth, or there's any other reason that you're in a hospital, they probably don't have a bed for you, or at the least they don't have enough staff to give you the care that you probably deserve, and the care that you need, and the care that health professionals would prefer to be able to give you.
Yeah. What about you, Steve? What's going on? I think you probably live in the more rural area than Morgan or I do. I don't know. I mean, more than me, but probably even more than Morgan too. But yeah, what's going on? What's your take? What's happening?
Yeah, we are currently our hospitals they're not at max capacity yet. But they are the ones fielding a lot of the states around us are sending their hospitalized to us. And so it's probably like compared to our neighboring states, it's probably a small little complaint, but it's really distorting our numbers because we're in an area that, for the most part, I mean, no matter where you're at in the United States, there are people who aren't taking it seriously. You know, they're not doing the things they're supposed to be doing. But I'm in an area where they are putting measures in place, and so our positivity rate has climbed, but I don't believe it's as high as some of the neighboring states. And so like I said, some of those coming in are distorting our numbers, what they look like, and as Morgan pointed out, you know, for every hospital bed, like every hospital bed occupied by someone with COVID, it's one less bed for, I mean, anything could happen. Like Morgan mentioned, car accidents, births. We could have okay, and this is just me, and it's my job. So we could have a bioterrorism attack. We could have an earthquake. We could have a hazmat.
A flood.
A derecho.
A derecho.
We could have anything and then we don't have hospital beds. And it's just like, as a public health professional, and I know you guys can relate, and Morgan's a public health professional still, that it's because COVID is bad. It's an understatement, but it's highly communicable. But you can take steps to minimize community transmission, and they're not that hard. They haven't been that hard since the beginning. You know, if you stay home when you're sick, you don't go to public places. You wear your mask. You wash your hands. Congregate settings such as schools and hospitals and long-term care and shelters, just take precautions. People are still going to get sick, but it's disheartening that these skyrocketing numbers are, in my opinion, 100% based on people just not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, totally preventable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you can see it in other countries because they are preventing it. Like, it's happening in real time. We're choosing not to. 250,000 Americans dead by now. And okay. And so for a little bit of levity, I'm going to make fun of Jared Kushner. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about him because he was put in charge of the national coronavirus response. Basically what happened, he showed up for work on March 11th and Mike Pence was like, get over here. And the vice president was like, you're going to do like, you're now in charge of the country's response to the virus. Like, I know that the economy's on the verge of collapse. Like, I know I did a really shitty job. You fix it. And that is why I would like to talk about what kind of a person Jared Kushner is, because he absolutely shouldn't be in charge of anything at all. And definitely not like stuff that, you know, could result in 250,000 or more American deaths. So first of all, his grandparents survived the Holocaust. They escaped from Poland and they ended up on the East Coast in America, and they became builders, like construction, and they became very, very rich. Like, and when I was reading about this, apparently like offspring, like children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, like really feel like they need to make it because they feel like their like ancestors' struggles need to be for something. So I guess that this isn't like that uncommon, but they had a son named Charles, who is Jared Kushner's dad, who's like an objectively bad person. And like, you would not want him as your father. You would not want him as your partner. Like, he put a lot of pressure on Jared to be perfect, and he had like no control over his emotions. Like, he actually was kind of like a lot like Donald Trump, but like had his shit together more, kind of. I don't know. They have, I don't know. I mean, patterns of toxic masculinity, it's bad for everybody. And like, it's part of the reason that Jared like can't stand up to Donald Trump, even though that's what would be best for the country. And he probably knows it too, because he's not like stupid. He's not Harvard smart, which his dad paid $2.5 million to get him into Harvard because he didn't get like good grades, but he's not like dumb. So I feel like he knows. He's just loyal to his family over his country, which is awful, but also like a theme in his life. So oh my gosh. Okay. So Charles Kushner, Jared's dad, donated a lot of money to whatever politicians would benefit him, which is kind of like what corporations do now. I mean, like, but he donated a lot of money to Democrats because like that's who was in control at the time where he lived, like in New Jersey. And that's like, you pay off the people in power. So I think we understand that like corruption is not like a Democrat Republican issue. It's like a lot of times people in power end up using it wrongly, and that's bad, and we don't like any of them, and they all have to go. So Charles Kushner was like exploiting his wealth. He was donating a lot of money, but he ended up he was donating too much money. So there are campaign finance laws. They're not like super strict. People get around them all the time. But one of the ways that Charles Kushner was trying to get around them was he was donating money in his sister's name, which you can't do. So the like the FBI or the New York NYPD or something was launching an investigation into Charles Kushner and this campaign finance violation, and he thought that his sister was going to cooperate with the authorities. So, like any sane person would do, he hired a guy to hire a sex worker to sleep with his sister's husband and videotape it, and then he sent that videotape to his sister in the mail to try and intimidate her out of testifying, like cooperating with the authorities, which is bonkers.
That's
like
not only insane, but like, why would he assume that would work is my question. Like,
I don't know. The very first thing she did was like turn that over to the authorities and was like, what the fuck? And then he went to jail for longer. Like, so yeah. Bananas. But so also another theme is that like his family life and his business life are totally the same, and it's the same with the Trumps, and it causes like a lot of issues. But he learned to be like, because his dad was so like explosive, he learned to be like a people pleaser, and like he learned not like to walk on eggshells, I guess, and he learned not how to not like set people like that off, like insecure men who, I don't know, need their like emotions taken care of too much. All right, so obviously that was insane. Went to jail. Jared was in college, I think, by this point, and he like stood firm with his dad. He was like, nope, he did nothing wrong. They should have been loyal to the family. They never should have cooperated with the authorities, which is just like a bonkers stance to take. I was asking my mom, I was like, hey, should I turn in my ancestry DNA? Like, I'm worried about it because what if I have like a fourth cousin who, and she was like, that they committed a crime. Like, they got to go. I was like, okay, you're right. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the right take. But so Jared flew almost every weekend to visit his dad in prison, I think in Alabama or something. He was very loyal to his dad, still is. They're very close. They like talk almost every day, even though Jared's in the White House now. So whatever, that's a problem. But I don't know. That's it. That's his childhood. So went to Harvard, didn't get good grades, whatever. People around him say that he absolutely believes he can solve any problem he's presented with, which is like, yeah, I guess like he's never come across one before that people haven't like told him he did a great job with. So
I mean, you can throw a solution onto any problem, but like that doesn't mean it's the right one. I mean, we see that in public health all the time. We address problems and we're like, great, fixed it, even though there's like, I don't know, 500,000 people dead and like, you know, chaos everywhere and a lot of distrust and so I mean,
let's have a guy who doesn't know anything come in and tell us what to do. That sounds good, which is exactly what happened actually with the pandemic response is Jared stepped in and was like, anyway, for real, he texted his college roommate. He was like, I know what to do. I'll text my college roommate. He'll help us. And they like got some of their like rich white boyfriends together who are all also like overly confident, I'm sure. So, and I'm sure a lot of them are also very smart, but like, does that make up for like years of education and training in public health? No. So what are you doing? But anyway, so obviously it didn't work. Like, I don't know if you remember all of the like kerfuffle with like states buying PPE from each other. There's a whole system in place. We talked about it in our last episode, but like Jared Kushner doesn't know how to use it. So he just was like, anyway. So, okay. So he shouldn't have been in charge of that. But not only was that on his plate, he also was in charge of immigration reform, mass incarceration, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So, I mean, in June, he basically like like clapped his hands and was like, okay, great job with COVID response. Moving on. And now he's, oh my gosh, that's right. He was working on the president's re-election campaign. So that went well. So maybe after this year, he'll be like, maybe I'm not so smart. Maybe I'm not so good at stuff, but probably not. I don't think he'll ever be self-aware. Okay, so like I said, March 11th, Mike Pence is like, hey, get over here. You're in charge of this now. Fix it, blah, blah, blah. Jared Kushner, obviously just like all of our worst ex-boyfriends, his belief is that the government is inefficient and that we need entrepreneurs and businessmen in charge so that they can make it efficient and use data and as if that's like not what the government's trying to do, but you're taking away our scientists and our funding. I don't have a job anymore, but you get it.
Also, like he is the government right now.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. So he texted his old roommate from when they were interns at an investment bank. No, not experts or scientists, even though we're like begging for experts and scientists to be in the room, which Joe Biden came out with his COVID task force and it looks amazing. There's like PhDs, there's good stuff in there. It's just very, very heartening to see if we can get to January. So he did some stuff well, like he's not a total idiot, but he didn't set up any infrastructure that would be useful now. Like I said, he just declared COVID like a success in June. And it's like, hey man, there was a pandemic 100 years ago. I don't know if you looked at that or anything, but there was a much worse surge in the fall. So could we maybe set up some infrastructure for that? And he was like, no, I think we're fine. So anyway, now there's a surge in the fall, as all the experts predicted. And Jared's not concerned. But like, what would be really useful now, because we have such a surge, is like a lot of rapid testing of like large parts of the population, because so many people have it and we can't do contact tracing or anything. But no, he did not do that. Moved on to police reform. Between COVID and the president's reelection, he worked on police reform. His solution was more training and better ways to track misconduct, which is so like, yeah, man, we've tried that. Like, we've been talking about police brutality since forever. Like, the issue is not more training. It's like, oh, okay. So it actually kind of reminds me of Citizens United, because like that's Republicans' argument for that too, is like, we just need more transparency. The problem isn't that we can drop however much money, millions of dollars for Democrats and Republicans, like big oil, like more money on Democrats now to try, like, we don't like people who take any corporate donations at all, Republicans or Democrats. I don't know. It's just so annoying that like, I feel like he's always like, oh, we just got to meet in the middle. And it's like, no, let's do the thing that's right. Like, the median is not like, this is so stupid. Okay. So people say that he like takes pleasure in running through PowerPoint slides describing like how well he's doing with like the 2020 reelection campaign. And he's like talking about like geo-targeting and like showing PowerPoints with data. And like he actually projected that with his like reelection campaign, with Jared's plan in place, he was going to double Trump's share of the black vote. And it's just like, oh man, how did that work out? Like,
he sounds like a great character on The Office, who is just like, it would be comically incompetent if it was a sitcom instead of our country, but
like so unaware of himself at all, because like, oh my God. So that's who Jared Kushner is. He also is like, yeah, he's sneaky. He's like a sneaky snake, and he's like worse than the president, because like he totally I don't know about worse than the president, but he totally enables him, and I hate him. Okay, that's all. He should not be in charge of the pandemic response. I think we need to talk a little bit more about Kushner companies, which is what Jared and his dad do now. So his grandparents started off in construction. They like made an honest living. But what he and his dad do now at Kushner companies is they're basically landlords, but like they're the worst landlords. They're like landlords from hell. There's a really good episode of Dirty Money on Netflix called Slumlord Millionaire about their family, and I highly recommend watching it if you want to hear more about white collar crime and everything that's wrong with these people. So they're basically just predators masquerading as landlords, and they get away with it because there isn't enough oversight and regulation, so they can. Their apartments were frequently found so they have a lot, like hundreds, if not definitely thousands of apartment complexes in New York, Baltimore, lots of different places. And lots of them were found to have black mold, rodent infestations, lead, carcinogens, leaks. They never fix anything in their New York apartments because they know they can just find another tenant right away. And that's how they make more money, by not ever doing maintenance or using licensed contractors, which is actually very dangerous because they use like really shady people to fix their gas and electrical, to the point that it's dangerous. And like they also have fire code violations. Like, it's bad news. So that's what they do to their tenants in New York. Their tenants in Baltimore, where the housing market is not as robust, or whatever you want to say, they just charge them all kinds of ridiculous fees, like again and again, and it still don't do maintenance. But they just try and squeeze like every last penny out of that tenant because they know that there's not another one that's going to move in. So they try and squeeze as much money out of that tenant as they can. Another shady thing that they do, like really shady thing that they do in New York, is they will buy rent stabilized apartment buildings, and then they will harass the tenants into moving out with like 24/7 construction, which is known as construction harassment. You can't do it, but they do. And then they harass them until they can remodel the apartments and then market them as luxury apartments. They no longer have to be rent stabilized, and then they can like triple or quadruple the rent. So they don't have any like morals or values. They don't give a shit about their tenants. They see their obligation to their shareholders at Kushner companies, which is like the stupidest thing. It's just, their minds are full of worms. I don't understand, but that's how they think. So Jared and Charles Kushner are just examples of capitalism taken to the extreme, like the absolute extreme. And it's what is always going to happen without like strict regulations and oversight. Like, let's put Elizabeth Warren in charge of this. But they're people who operate like laws are for other people to deal with and for them to figure out how to get around. And that's 100% how Donald Trump acts also. And they're not the kind of people that you want to be in any sort of position of power. So yeah, so just imagine someone with views and values like that with top level security clearance, but like no loyalty to anybody but their immediate family, and doesn't feel any responsibility to country, it doesn't seem like. So Jared has had meetings with Russia, Israel, UAE, China, and people are just purchasing political influence because like he's signaled that the only thing he cares about is money, and they're trying to make as much of it as possible, and they don't care what happens other than they line their pockets. So, and that's what's happening. They are growing even wealthier in a pandemic because they are preying on working people, working class people who are getting poorer. Like, their tenants very clearly are losing money because they either have to like pay for repairs themselves because the Kushners refuse to do them, or the repairs are so shoddy that like there's a fire or a gas leak or whatever and people actually get hurt. It's just their bottom line, all they care about is money. So, and Ivanka is exactly the same way. Just because she is like good at using words to sound flowery and stuff, she's just like a prettier version of her dad. If you want to learn more about her, read that Vanity Fair article that was written by one of her two bridesmaids. My favorite quote, I think, was when her bridesmaid recommended Ivanka a book that was about, I think, a family who was struggling during the recession. And Ivanka said, "Ew, why the fuck would I want to read a book about poor people?" It's like, what? So there are people like that in the world, and they get to be successful and run the country if we're not careful. So I hope we prosecute the shit out of these criminals once they get out of office, because they definitely don't deserve any kind of power. So yeah, I guess that's mostly what I wanted to say about that. They're growing even wealthier in a pandemic because they're exploiting their tenants and they're exploiting the American people. And these people have been in charge of our country for the last 4 years. They should be prosecuted. And it's gross. And also it's an example of why nepotism is bad. Because undeserving people are awarded positions of power where people can actually get hurt and they're not qualified for it, and stuff like this happens. So I don't want to leave on that note. I want to leave with a little bit more of an optimistic note about the Kushners, because there are people who are doing the hard work to not let this happen anymore, not let people like this get away with stuff. So the first one I want to highlight is independent journalism, as always. So like ProPublica, I don't know how it's pronounced. They always have really, really good investigative reporting. They do a lot of the like dirty work into figuring out what exactly Kushner Companies is doing wrong and figuring out how they're going to like find a chink in the armor and get them to stop exploiting working class Americans. So they're doing a really good work. And then there are also housing activists like lawyers and pro bono lawyers who are like trying to prosecute these people for this stuff in court. So yeah, totally separate from like the other criminal charges that Jared will be facing when he leaves the White House as President Trump's senior advisor, even though he's his stepson. So there are people who are aware that this is happening and who are fighting against it. So Richie Torres was a housing rights activist in New York, and he actually has now been elected to Congress. So he is the kind of person who is absolutely going to be fighting for working class families, because he was born in poverty, he grew up in poverty, and he understands the importance of having stable housing. And it should be a right for everybody. We're going to talk about trauma and adverse childhood experiences in a future episode, but there's just a lot to talk about there. But there are good people out there. We're working on getting them into Congress. So if you want to throw Richie Torres a couple of dollars, I'm sure he would appreciate it too. Or just follow him on social media. He's an impressive guy. So without further ado, now we will get into all the details about the vaccine. I do want to mention that we recorded this episode before the Moderna vaccine press release came out, which respectfully on this podcast we will be referring to as the Dolly Parton vaccine. Thank you. So that one doesn't have to be stored at quite a low temperature, so that's some good news. But here, without further ado, here's our interview with our emergency preparedness expert about vaccines. But today, we really want to talk about vaccine distribution, and I think people are itching to hear more about that. So, Steve, can you share with us, I think states were required to turn in plans, initial plans for pandemic or for vaccine distribution. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was, I guess, about a month ago now that, because I work for a local health department, so we were tasked by the state health department to provide very preliminary plans. Part of what we had to provide was, because the CDC guidance references providers, so that is anyone within a jurisdiction who's going to request and then administer the vaccine once it's here. So what they were trying to do at that point was just see what percentage of the population is covered by a provider, whether it's the provider is a big business, a hospital, a pharmacy, a physician's office. It's a lot of different places could be providers. But at that point, the state needed that information because the CDC was just trying to get that ballpark number overall of what they can anticipate the number being provided through these different disciplines. And so as public health, the way that we approached it is, because we are responsible as a local health department, we're responsible for 100% of our population. So when we get this list of providers, it gives us an idea of how much is left, how much more we will have to do after these 40, 50 providers, after you take into account what they're going to cover.
Yeah.
So that was most of the initial plan. We have a mandate now, or a directive now, to by Thanksgiving, since it's looking like, because that was about a month ago, and it was who knows when a vaccine's coming. I know Operation Warp Speed said, by
Stupidest
November.
name. I hate it so much.
It is.
What? It's we're living in a cartoon.
I know,
kidding me.
It's
Space Force.
I mean, it's so funny that Operation Warp Speed. At least the way it's known most often is from a fictional show. So I kind of just assumed the whole plan was fiction. But they thought vaccine was going to be here by November 1st, which of course didn't happen. No one in their right mind thought it was going to happen. So now by Thanksgiving, we have to submit our our actual plan, because initially it was the state, it was just really the providers. Now it's what are we going to do when the vaccine's available? And it could be, I mean, they still don't really know, but it's getting closer and closer to getting some more definite like timetables. Mm-hmm. So, Katie, I don't know how much you wanted me to talk about, or at least right now, about what we're planning to do, or kind of what we've been told and what we still don't know.
I mean, I definitely want to talk. I don't know. I want to talk about all of it.
I know. I just didn't want to like jump into all of it if you and Morgan had some specific questions to hit on.
No, I would love to hear like what you have been told and then what you still don't know yet. Is also working in public health right now. We really haven't been told anything other than in late October, we were told anyone with a nursing degree or a master's in public health should, quote, like be on standby in the event that they would need extra hands on deck for vaccine administration the first week of November. Obviously that did not happen, but yeah, and we have not heard a peep about it since.
Well, the things that we know, I mean, I see there are like three categories. There are things that we know. There are things that we have a relatively good idea regarding, things we don't know at all. The things we know, and I obviously can't speak for every state. I can speak for my state. To prepare for vaccine administration, they've expanded scopes of practices for medical providers, where paramedics and EMTs are authorized to administer the vaccine, which helps a ton, of course, because as soon as the vaccine gets here, the quicker it gets out, the better. Mm-hmm. Along those lines, we've been told that we should have plans in place, because this is, well, it mirrors, not that, I mean, your audience may or may not remember when I talked about bioterrorism, but in a bioterrorism event, time is very important. So as soon as you get the medication, you're working 24 hours a day to get it out to people, because it's so relevant to keeping them healthy. They're taking the same approach to the COVID vaccine. It's not so much because we've been dealing with COVID for 9-10 months now, but they just obviously want to get it out as soon as possible. One is because of the whole cold chain management, because the ultra cold vaccine is like 70 degrees below zero.
Yes.
And so very few providers have the ability to maintain that.
Yeah. And even that is kind of an understatement, right? Like no normal doctor's office will have something that goes this cold. Like I think maybe the closest one to me, isn't there like a big one somewhere in like Wisconsin or Michigan? I think even like Mayo Clinic doesn't have this cold. Like they're very few and far between. So that's actually like one of the things that I hope people keep in mind, that's like a huge challenge, that this whole pandemic feels a little bit like a dream. And this is like, you've been handed like a really hard, like this is your capstone project to get your master's degree in public health or in like emergency preparedness or something. And it's like, explain to me what you're going to do. And I don't know. It's just, it's like, this whole thing is like a nightmare almost, but okay. Sorry. Didn't.
Oh, no. And so like, we are the subject matter experts. And so I've been doing planning meetings with our partners for the last month or so, and we only have so much we can relay to them. But some of the things that so we do know, we know that obviously vaccines coming. We don't know which one and how, going back to the whole timing thing. We've been told that within 48 hours of receiving the vaccine, it has to be out. It has to be in people. We can't hold on to it. One is the cold chain management. The other is, and I don't remember this in 2009, but during the H1N1 response, I guess that there had been some incidents where providers were hoarding the vaccine, like if they maybe not intentionally, but if they ended up providing 100 doses, they ended up ordering 200 just in case they needed it or they were holding on to it. And they're trying to make sure that doesn't happen, because, and I know you guys know this as well as any, that I do and anyone else, but the vaccine isn't the end all. It's not like the vaccine's here and we can all take off our masks, and but it's a big piece. And so the sooner this gets out to the mass population, the better. So I'll just kind of sum this up, and then definitely whatever else you guys want to know. But so we know that we know that's going to be, we have to, we know how we're going to order it. We know how we're going to track it. We know how we're going to record people to whom it's administered. We know how we're going to handle that stuff. What we have a ballpark idea of is that there's going to be 3 to 4 vaccines initially, not knowing exactly when each is rolling out. We know that most of them are going to require 2 doses. And so because public education is going to be,
that's going to be the hard. Thinking.
That was my big question too. Is like, how are you going to get people to like understand that this is multiple doses that they have to get?
Well, like the state where I am in, they, at least the guidance we've received at this point, stated that there will be a statewide campaign to get public messaging out.
That's good.
We as locals have just, it's not too early for us to start telling people. I mean, even the things that we think we know, that like it's because one of the things that where public message is going to be so important, and there's a scenario we talked about the other day that, and I'll try to make this brief, but if let's say on December 15th, there are 4 vaccines available. So we run a clinic, we have all 4 vaccines available. We provide them based on whatever guidance we have, like maybe people over 65 can't get 2 of them, or, kids can't get 1 of them, or whatever, which we don't know any of that yet, but whatever we do know. So when it has to be a 2-dose vaccine, but you have to get the same vaccine twice. You can't get, if there's an A, B, C, D, you can't get a B vaccine December 15th and January 20th get a C vaccine. So kind of, since there's so much we don't know yet how we're going to tell people that showed up on December 15th, because we can't call them A, B, C, D vaccine. We also can't call them by whatever the manufacturer calls them, because I'm sure there are going to be names that are too complicated for people to comprehend. Mm-hmm. So when January 20th rolls around and we have another clinic, we don't know what vaccines we'll have at that clinic until 3 days before the clinic starts. So all those people on December 15th that we said, you need to get that second dose, and they got the A vaccine, we run the clinic on January 20th, and we only have C and D. We'll have to communicate that some way to the public to say, well, you do need that second dose, we just don't have it yet. So show up at next week's.
So there's like so much room for this to be just entirely fucked up.
There, unfortunately, like in 2009, there was 1 vaccine. Mm-hmm. That was the H1N1 response. That was the pan flu response. There was 1 vaccine. You showed up to the first clinic, you showed up to the second clinic. We just gave you a shot in the arm and told you to get out. Not literally, but no, yeah, it is like between all of the misinformation regarding the vaccines are unsafe and not understanding that you'll have to get 2 of the exact same one. Yep. It's going to be a nightmare.
You already know somebody's going to be like, well, I got one vaccine and I got COVID, so the liberal media is lying to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, you didn't listen to directions. Like, stop it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like maybe when they give the vaccine, each of them should have like a little logo, and it's like a henna tattoo or like something that'll last for a little while. So that way people cannot forget or they can go ahead and forget which one they got or lie about it. It won't matter because they've got a little tattoo. It's like one of them is like a circle with an X through it, and the other one is like an X with a circle in the corner. And like,
you could even make them emojis.
Right. Like, that'd be so fun. Yeah. Let's make it fun
for the kids.
Pokemon. I love it. I think this is great. They either do ear tipping or a little tattoo on feral cats who've been TNR'd, why don't we do this with people
That's
who've
been going
vaccinated? Only it maybe not as permanent as something like ear tipping, just like a little temporary ditty.
No, it painless. I'm all for it.
Well, we were talking about giving people shirts that said I went to the COVID clinic and all I got was the stupid shirt.
Love it.
Having the vaccine that they got on the back. So they said, wear the shirt again. I need
just
vaccine.
Come back in your shirt.
Yeah, right. Like Live Strong bracelets. Let's bring them back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got the vaccine they received on there. Although, I mean, I just feel like we need to idiot-proof everything in public health as much as possible because, I mean, especially at the federal level, currently it's mostly being run by idiots. And then at the state level, as we know, there's a few of those as well.
There's a huge variation depending on who you're, whether you have, I mean, we talk about this every episode.
The public.
Yep.
Well, and just so, your audience understands, local health department is responsible for making sure that they know what vaccine you got.
Yep.
But so when you show up at the clinic, they can determine which vaccine you need and whether or not we have it or if the time frame has passed. But what we are obviously talking about is just the public at large understanding this and showing up at the right place or showing up at all.
And I mean, for anybody who's listening who is from the Biden administration, public health communications kind of my jam. So you can hire me. I would be happy to be your public information officer.
Wait, let me come too.
Katie can come too, and Steve can come, and we will tell everyone. We will explain to them just like we would if I was explaining a really complicated concept. Anyway.
To a child.
Literally, we are trained to take really complicated scientific information and explain it to children. That was my first career out of grad school. We can do this. Let people who are good at this stuff handle this. Let them educate the public. Don't just put some random lawyer out there and be like, tell people, because that obviously doesn't work. We still have people who think coronavirus isn't real or that it's not spread through respiratory droplets, and there's just so many things people don't understand. I mean, just yesterday shouldn't have done it, but I was reading a thread on Twitter, and it was about medicine and healthcare, and people were talking about some of them had patients with COVID who were denying that they had COVID. They're in the hospital, they're about to go on a ventilator, and they're cussing out their nurses who are trying to save their lives because they're saying, this isn't COVID, give me the medicine. I know you've got the medicine for this. We don't have that medicine. That misinformation is out there. We have to explain it to people, but a lot of people were jumping on the thread with this nurse sharing her story and saying you should get fired for a violation of HIPAA, which of course they were also putting the wrong number of P's and A's on HIPAA because nobody ever gets that right.
Nobody.
And they were they were telling this woman how this was a violation of HIPAA and her Hippocratic oath and all of these things, that it's just made it so clear to me how much the public does not know. And it's not the public. I mean, yes, the public has a little bit of personal responsibility to maybe not listen to QAnon. But also the people who are the professionals have that responsibility to make sure. When I'm saying the professionals, I don't mean us who are maybe a little bit lower on the totem pole. I mean the directors of the health departments, the state epidemiologists, the state directors, the governors. They have that responsibility to make sure that the public is getting the information that they need from who they need to hear it from. And I just think that with vaccine distribution, if it's not handled well, it's going to end up just being a very expensive clusterfuck.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Iowa, so it's probably just going to be a very expensive clusterfuck no matter what. But I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I agree. And it couldn't have come under worse circumstances. I mean, if it holds out, the vaccine holds out till January, I have much better faith in how it's going to go. But, I guess the other thing, and not to essentially change the subject, it's just the other public messaging that people need to know now which we did in H1N1, but the priority populations that people are going to see the vaccines coming December 15th, let's say it's going to be ready, that that general public that wants the vaccine, most of them can't have it yet. And so it's going to be complicated because one, only certain groups are going to get it, of course, but then to be honest, we still don't know how it's going to work if you take the December 15th, January 20th examples. December 15th, we take care of frontline healthcare providers, first responders, long-term care facility and residents. And then January 20th rolls around. We haven't explicitly been told is it more important to get the second dose to the first group of people or the first dose to that second group of people? And so that's one of those things that if it's come down to the state level, I haven't seen it. And so it's one of those where when we're in a position where we are the subject matter experts talking to our providers in the jurisdiction I cover, we can't tell them yet because we don't know. And it's public messaging to the general public. It's also, there are a lot of providers out there, a lot of first responders that also need this messaging and need to understand how important it is to pay attention. Everyone has to be flexible with this.
Yeah. Have they given you any information at this point regarding side effects of the vaccine or what that might look like? Because I was thinking, boy, if the first people to get this vaccine are largely frontline healthcare workers and it's got side effects that end up putting people out of work, that's not going to go very well.
No, we haven't. No, because to be honest, we haven't received any concrete information regarding any of the vaccines other than, we know because the Pfizer one from the other day, our state health department didn't tell us. Well, they referenced it, but it didn't come down through an official document. It was.
Well, didn't they just release that stuff in a press release? I don't even know that. I'm kind of taking that with a grain of salt because I don't think they released all their information. They just put it in. They were like, yeah, here's a press release. It's 90% effective. And everybody was like, yay.
Right. And so to answer your question, no, we have not been told because they don't, and it's kind of, maybe I shouldn't trust, but I'm trusting that they don't know yet, but we have no idea.
Yeah, I feel like transparency of that information once they have it is so important. And hopefully that happens nationwide. Hopefully everything from the federal governments or in the pharmaceutical industries passed down to the state governments who then spread the word to local public health.
Yeah, you got to cascade it.
Yeah, it's without it being like a game of telephone where by the end end everybody's hearing different things. Yeah, and it's or wrong things or I think that's so important.
You need one A vaccine on December 15th and you need one D vaccine on January 20th. And sorry, nobody listen to that. I'm making fun of what the worst case scenario could be.
Of course we're biased all having worked together at a local public health department, but nonetheless, most of the people there are passionate and really smart and care a lot, the three of us.
So I'm a normie now. I would not be a frontline. When do you think normies will get their access to the vaccine? Sometime in the spring? Is that a safe or a good estimate?
I assume so, because the first, they're going in phases. So the first phase, like I said, frontline healthcare workers, critical infrastructure, which is a relatively broad term, is just whoever has been identified to keep everything going. Long-term care. So the first phase will be that. The second phase is going to be your chronic medical conditions, senior citizens who aren't in long-term care because they'll be part of the first phase. So, and obviously it's just 100% dependent on how much is available and when it's available. So, yeah, so I would assume in the first month and a half, so like you said, Katie, probably early spring is when the general population, where us as a health department will be setting up our general population points of dispensing and getting the vaccine to anyone who wants it.
Okay, cool. Well, my birthday is on March 20th, which is the first day of spring, and that would be an excellent birthday present if, I don't know, Anthony Fauci or anybody's listening. I'll be 30, and all I want is a vaccine. Okay, I lost my train of thought earlier when I was talking about that capstone project, but all I was trying to say is, like, if I got handed that and was like, okay, there's going to be a pandemic in 2020, what are you going to do? And then they were like, oh, and by the way, you have to administer it in 2 doses. I'd be like, fuck you. Like, that's too hard. Like, that's too annoying. You shouldn't make me do this. And I would have the same response if they were like, oh, and you have to store it in negative 70 degrees Celsius. I'd be like, no, fuck you. Like, this is too hard. And you have to do both, and that's not fair, and it sucks, and I'm sorry, but it's very, very complicated.
Yeah,
it is very complicated because, and like I said, I know I keep saying this, but I believe that they're telling us what they can, but like you guys referenced earlier, very few organizations have those on hand. Mm-hmm. So as a local health department, talking to our partners, we are looking at those. We've never needed one before, but we're looking at an ultra cold freezer. We could get it and never use it. Like, because even the cold vaccine comes, there's still some back and forth between whether it can be stored in the shipping packaging for up to a period of time where we're supposed to get it out in 40 hours anyways, or if we may have to hold on to it for a while, in which case we'll be in really bad shape without a freezer. Yeah. So it's just, and I guess, like, I've never been through this before. Like I said, H1N1, it took a while to get the pan flu that vaccine but they had they said about 6 to 8 months to get a pandemic influenza vaccine, because for influenza, they have the infrastructure in place. They just need to narrow it down to what virus are we talking about. With COVID, they really didn't. And so that's why you have these 4 vaccines that have all these varied requirements related to storage, who's going to get it, and it's just a brand new ball game for everyone.
Yeah, that's hard. That's complicated. Until government officials get their messaging shit together, we'll do our best to give you relevant updates. At least we're 100% honest.
True.
Well, okay, I think I do have one more question about vaccine distribution, is that at least with this Pfizer one, I read that it comes in really, really big doses, which would be hard to, like, divide up and get out to rural areas. Are you, like, worried about that? Or I bet there's, like, plans for that I bet states are taking measures to try and address that, but.
Yeah, I mean, and it's another aspect of it is that the federal government, and I think it's a really good program. I mean, I'm interested to see how it's going to play out, but they're partnering with pharmacy chains, who are those who is that industry that does have all of the freezers. So, like, they do have like huge CVS, Walgreens, Sam's, Walmart. Like, they do have those capabilities. And so they're partnering with them to work with long-term care facilities to administer the vaccine for them. And so, and it's one of those things, too, because we've been told that the ultra-cold vaccines coming in 1,000-dose kits. Mm-hmm. And so it would be hard if an agency only needed 50. Yeah. How do you give them 50 while maintaining cold chain management? But I'm just guessing. I think a lot of that early vaccine is going to go to the big pharmacy chains who can handle it without a problem. Mm-hmm. Like, they have all of that. And so it's kind of one of those wait and see things, to where what percentage is given to them, we don't have to worry about it. And then what percentage may be left over that's given to a local health department or given to a hospital who doesn't need as much. And then like you said, Katie, if that's the case, how are we getting it to that, whatever the case is, going to be a long-term care facility who's not working with a pharmacy chain or a first responder agency? It's just it's a lot of wait and see.
Yeah, I know that some of my current job involves working with pharmacies around not infectious disease stuff, around more chronic disease work, but a lot of them are preparing for things to get really crazy on their end at some point regarding the COVID vaccine. They're hoping that everyone by now, which we know that that's, optimism, people will have already all gotten their flu shot. So at least they only have one vaccine that they're trying to juggle. And then also, just kind of another reminder about, in public health. So the pharmacists in pharmacy sites I'm working with to, work on things like blood pressure and A1C. If they suddenly get rerouted to work on COVID stuff, hypertension, diabetes, strokes, heart attacks, they don't just go away, but resources, including, people's time and energy, gets just devoted to the pandemic response, as it should, but also just kind of that other reminder of, when there is something like a pandemic, especially when it's been let to run rampant the way that COVID-19 has, at least in the United States and in my particular state, that it means attention goes away from the things like diabetes and heart attack, heart disease, stroke that actually kills like millions and millions of people a year. In addition to potentially COVID, if we don't get a grip on this thing. But yeah, and I think that it's just like another reminder of, public health hasn't completely stopped, but also, I can't do my job as a chronic disease manager when I'm working with sites and clinics who have to be full COVID mode. Like you kind of brought up earlier, like just because there's a pandemic doesn't mean we couldn't also have a bioterrorism attack on top of it. And it's, like the whole rest of things have to keep rolling too. And it just adds such an extra layer of difficulty to people who are working in public health, people who are working in, clinics and, frontline healthcare workers, but also just, again, recognizing the importance of public health and maybe looking at how big it is and hoping that someday the country and our administration recognizes that as well, too, so that maybe we don't have situations where we have so many people who just don't have the money or the staff resources or, other resources to do their jobs. It's my little hey, don't forget about public health.
And to put it in perspective for people who are more concerned with the economy or whatever, it's much more fiscally responsible to prevent something from happening than it is to try and fix something after it's happening. I don't know if that has been proven true through this pandemic or not, if that's clear to anybody now, but yeah, it would have been a whole lot nicer if we just listened to scientists sooner.
I mean, South Korea has had fewer COVID deaths as a whole nation of like 51 million people or something than just the state of North Dakota, which finally has instituted a mask mandate. North Dakota doesn't even have 1 million people there. Nobody lives in North Dakota. And somehow they've had more COVID deaths than the entire country of South Korea.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I can't say this enough, it didn't have to be like this.
Right, and especially when you consider that, a large portion of the people who do live in the Dakotas are indigenous people, and just a whole extra double FU, I guess, to, a group of people that the country decided weren't actually people, like, 400 years ago or something?
Yeah, so much to fix.
Fun stuff. Racism. Yay.
We're working on it. Everybody's got to be working on it. If you're a white person, please give some money to a grassroots Black or indigenous person, people of color, some sort of charity this week, especially ones in Georgia, like the ACLU of Georgia or Black Voters Matter Fund or Fair Fight or New Georgia.
Just donate your money to Georgia and also just check up on people. just check up on them. The COVID fatigue is real. We feel it. Everyone feels it. But, checking up on people, just saying hi, doing Zoom chats, these kinds of things really, really help. And, but that being said, like, don't go visit them.
No, because it's like 1 in 230 some Americans has, no, it's more than that. But it's it's too low of a number.
Yeah.
Like 1 in every 200 or 300 something Americans has COVID.
Yeah.
It's like, we know, know 200 some people, 300 some people.
And if you do visit them, wash your hands, wear a mask.
Keep your mask on the
whole time. Don't go near each other, that kind of stuff.
It doesn't count if you're taking it off to eat and you keep it on the rest of the time. That's BS. It doesn't count if you put it around your chin. It doesn't count if you put it around your nose. What did I miss that people are doing?
It doesn't count if it's made out of like jersey material.
Yeah, we're talking.
I've seen that one too. People like making it's a mask, and it's like, no, it's not. That's a fishnet stocking that you tied around your face.
Oh my God, I think I don't know. Are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make it to January 20 whatever without going insane? I don't know.
I was thinking as you guys were talking about like taking care of your neighbors and doing the right thing, that they need like people seem to start adopting the WWPHD like tattoos or something and ask themselves what would public health do?
Yes.
Like, if they're going to somebody's house, like you said, Morgan, is this mask really appropriate? Would public health approve of this? No. Then get the other mask.
Public health would tell you to stay in your fucking house, please.
Yes, they would. Public health, we do that all the time.
Yeah. Stay home.
Stay home, save lives.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, is there anything else, Morgan, you wanted to ask, or is there anything else, Steve, that you wanted to share about, I don't know, any updates or vaccine distribution or anything else that's been happening?
Nothing on my end.
No, that's pretty much, it feels like, because I know you guys can relate, but public health, is preparing for the vaccine to get here. That's most of what is on that's most of what I shared related to the vaccine. But, this is a very selfish pitch. But just recognize your audience, recognize the value of public health, because even just very specific to this pandemic, we're still doing contact tracing, we're doing case investigation, we're housing people who don't have means to separate themselves, we're still testing everyone. They're just still, it will come to an end eventually, but there's just still so much going on, and I just hope that, and I don't know, maybe we're too far gone, and those who think it's a myth will always think it's a myth, but it would just help so much to do the things that you guys have been advocating for, and just some common sense. And the thing is, what I want, like, because I live in a small town where our one Casey's is the only thing here, and there are people, obviously every time I go in there, people not wearing masks. Those are the type of people who are getting tired of all these mitigation measures. And I just want to tell them, like, that we have to still do this because of people like that. Yeah. Like, if people, we wouldn't have to close businesses, we wouldn't have to, isolate and quarantine everyone, at least not at the rate we are doing it now, if they would just put a stupid mask on.
Yep.
So that's it, Katie.
No, I think that's such a good point. It's like infuriating. I can't remember if it was Japan or China, but either one of them imposed like a very strict mask mandate from the beginning, and they barely had to shut down at all, because like that is very effective if you can get 95% of people to do it, but we can't get that many people to do it because we are selfish as fuck, and it's infuriating.
Yep.
Right.
But yes, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry, can I say this one last thing?
Yeah. Say your thing.
Okay. I shit on the federal response to the pandemic a lot, but there are people in your local health departments and in your hospitals and all around that are really, really trying their best to do what they can with like a really shitty hand. And we have to be even more careful because of the people that are in Casey's not wearing their masks. So please don't please don't get fatigued because they're fatigued, and we have to be like extra careful to try and like give the nurses in the hospitals a chance. Like ICU nurses only have like 1 or 2 patients at a time. They like can only care for 1 or 2 patients at a time. And in a lot of the states where it's really, really bad right now, they're caring for up to like 8, which is unheard of. Like they don't even sometimes they'll say like they were tripling, which means that they had 3 people, like they were in charge of 3 people, which is too much for one ICU nurse. And there are places where they're trying to take care of 8, and COVID patients are like very needy. They need a lot of your attention. So we have to stay out of the hospitals because of the Casey's people and a lot of other people. Sorry.
Okay, no, there legitimately are a lot at Casey's. Like I go, like every time I'm at Casey's, there's people like, what is going on here? It's always Casey's. It's always Casey's.
But the breakfast pizza is so good.
It is.
It's worth getting COVID, or it's worth risking COVID for.
Okay, yesterday I had to stop at a Casey's because I needed to go to the bathroom, and I was on the road after visiting my grandpa with masks. Nice. And as I was walking back, the people behind like the food area were freaking out because these 2 guys who were like younger guys had just told them that they'd never been to a Casey's before, but everyone told them they needed to stop and get some pizza. And the workers were just freaking out. They were so excited. Oh, it was really, really funny, really glorious, because I was like, I mean, it's true though. You do need to get this pizza. I've never been to a Casey's, but just watching the people who work there be so excited about it. And the 2 guys looked kind of shocked. Like, why are you
eggs don't belong on pizza, but it works so funny. Somehow.
I mean, neither do Doritos, but it's fantastic, that taco pizza. But yeah, it was great. I love Casey's and really need them to have the other people who love Casey's start wearing their masks. And it's not a minimum wage worker standing behind the counter's job to police that.
Good point.
Personal responsibility, people. Put on your own mask.
It's patriotic to give a shit about your fellow Americans.
Yeah, don't like wait for a poor 17-year-old who's making $7.25 an hour to say like, pump H already. Didn't have to tell you that. Yeah, that should not be part of their job. So
it's above their pay grade. Okay, well, I'll do a sign off. I'm gonna do a good one this time. But you don't have to hang up. I'm just
not sure if you've noticed. My dog did finally find a comfortable way to lay on that blanket that she's been nesting on for the last 10 minutes.
I did not see her finally lay down. I did notice that she was trying to make a spot. Good job. Good job, Abby.
Nest.
You did great. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. I hope the next time you join us, it'll be under less nerve-wracking circumstances, and we'll have like better news to share, but hang in there and we'll try to do the same. And thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much.
I really appreciated the time to talk to you guys, and I also hope that the next time I'm on, it's just all sunshine and kittens, and we're past COVID at that point.
Yep. No, racism has been solved. The economy is back.
No more global warming.
Yep, Joe Biden's going to fix it.
Yeah, so we'll talk to you again in 2056.
That's right.